I, 19 female, have always been a straight-A student. My parents set up a college fund for me when I was born, and I've worked hard to earn a place at a top university. I was supposed to start this fall, but a few months ago, everything changed. My brother, 30 male, has a wife, 28 female, and 2 young kids. Last year, his wife was diagnosed with a serious illness, and they've been struggling financially due to her medical bills. My parents have always preached the importance of family, so when my dad told me they were giving my college fund to my brother's family, I was devastated, but tried to understand. I took a gap year to work and save up, though I knew it wouldn't cover my tuition. Here's where things get insane. A few weeks ago, my mom was out of town visiting relatives, and I accidentally received a phone call from my dad. But there was a woman's voice on the other end, and she was talking to my father. They got confused when they heard my voice and hung up quickly, but not before I heard a child calling my dad Daddy in the background. Suspicious, I started to investigate. I checked my dad's phone records. I know, not my proudest moment, but I was desperate for answers. I found repeated calls and messages to a number saved as work contact. The messages were far from professional. They were affectionate and mentioned meeting up, and there were also pictures of 2 kids who seemed about 4 and 7 years old. I decided to dig deeper. My dad keeps financial records on his computer, so I waited until he went out and accessed it. What I found shocked me to the core. There were numerous transfers of money from what used to be my college fund account to an account under the name of this woman. Cross-referencing dates and amounts, I realized he had been financially supporting his mistress and her children for years. The college fund my dad supposedly gave to my brother was actually money he had been funneling to support his mistress's children. My brother's family only got a small fraction, just enough to make it look like a noble sacrifice on my dad's part. Furious and feeling utterly betrayed, I decided to take action. I gathered all the evidence of my dad's affair and financial support for his mistress's kids and presented it to my mom when she returned. She was devastated, but it was the push she needed to confront my dad and file for divorce. But I didn't stop there. I anonymously sent all the information to my dad's employer. He works at a financial firm where trust and integrity are priorities. When his employer discovered he had been misusing family funds and lying about his finances, they saw it as a significant breach of their ethical standards. Given his role involved managing client accounts and large sums of money, this personal misconduct raised serious concerns about his professional integrity and reliability. My mom and I are starting to rebuild, but it's been incredibly tough. My dad is furious with me and says I ruined his life, but I think he brought it on himself. So am I the a-hole for exposing my dad's affair and financial betrayal after he gave away my college fund? Update. It's been a month since everything blew up. My mom and I have moved into a smaller apartment, and she's working with a lawyer to finalize the divorce. My dad has been trying to contact me to apologize, but I've blocked him everywhere. My brother now knows the truth and is supporting us, and he and his wife are doing okay with the little help they did receive. I've also started a GoFundMe for my college tuition, and the support has been overwhelming. I feel like I've lost a lot, but I'm gaining back my sense of justice and moving forward with my life. Not the a-hole. Your dad dug his own grave. You did what was necessary to protect yourself and your future. Stay strong. Wow, this is intense. Your dad deserved to be exposed. He betrayed your trust and jeopardized your future. Proud of you for standing up for yourself and your mom. Make sure to keep all the evidence safe and follow up with your mom's lawyer. There's a good chance you can reclaim some of those funds. So me, 36 female, and my ex-husband, 38 male, were together for 6 years, married for 2 before he left me. At the time, our daughter was a year old. She's now 5. There was no warning signs. I left to go to a grocery shop, came home to him and his clothes, all his things, gone. Left a note saying he was in love with a new woman and wanted a divorce. Just like that. I got absolutely no closure from that. Any calls or messages were dodged, even when they were about our daughter. Literally nothing. During our divorce, he tried to fight for full custody, despite at this point not having seen her for 6 months, which was denied because he was in the military and at times constantly moving. I got full custody. He got supervision with holidays if he's not deployed. Shortly after our divorce, he married his now wife and they settled down in the city we live in. He's still in the military, but now he's on a specific base. I asked if he wanted to revise custody since he was no longer traveling. He said no need, and he wants to take things slow. Since our divorce, he has maybe seen her 11 times? Over what, 4 years? And mind you, He literally lives in the same city. Travel isn't a problem. My daughter is in therapy for this, just to process the absence, broken promises from her father. Typical "I'll pick you up this weekend," only to bail last second. Anyway, on to the issue. I got a call from him Friday night. He was supposed to pick our daughter up at 8 a.m. Saturday. I got a call at 1 a.m. because I was up working. And he basically says that he can't take our daughter to his place this weekend. After some back and forth, he says it's because his wife is upset with him spending time with her and that she gets jealous. Yes, jealous of a 5-year-old. Absolutely piss take. I've been fairly cooperative this entire time, but Jesus, I was just so upset. Like a buildup of emotions, I just started yelling at him, calling him a sack of crap and a disgrace. I mentioned our daughter being in therapy, how upset she was seeing some of the other kids with dads. In her preschool, there was this dad day where the kids brought their dads in to do activities with them. They had a mom day the previous week, and he promised to show, but pulled out last minute. I had to give her a sick day because she was so upset. So I really started going in on him. He gets angry and starts yelling and cussing back. Eventually, he got quiet, and I ended up saying, "You know what's really ducking funny? Our entire relationship, you made a big show about how much you hated your dad, how horrible he was to your mom and siblings, how your biggest fear was becoming like him. But honestly, the apple doesn't fall far from the ducking tree, because you are just like him." This was said in anger. He isn't exactly like his father, but there were similarities, which was why I said it. His father cheated on his mother, was aggressive to them, and eventually left and abandoned them for another woman. Take out the aggression part, in my opinion, they're the same. He didn't say anything for a couple of seconds, just, "Jesus Christ," and then he just ended the call. I haven't had contact with him since then. I absolutely did not feel bad at the time. I felt like my words were justified, but the longer it waits, the more I feel like I went too far. I ended up telling my parents what I said to get some feedback, and they said it was cruel and unnecessary. So, am I the a-hole here? Not the a-hole, if the deadbeat dad shoe fits. Being civil hasn't had any impact. Maybe this will be the wake-up call he needs, so not the a-hole. But you can't let him get your daughter's hopes up anymore. Therapy is good, but the repeated disappointment just causes setbacks for her. Not the a-hole. Well, doesn't sound like he said anything that was untrue. He is like his father. He's a bad father. When my wife and I were talking about getting married, my dad said that he would give us a down payment for a home. We were thrilled and kept that in mind. We would be able to afford a good starter home with his help, and we scrimped and saved to add to it. Except apparently, he meant a sum of money good for a down payment for a house near us, where the cost of living is low. He did not ever mean a down payment in a home in Colorado, where my wife and I have lived since we were in college. He said he thought I would be smart enough to realize that we'd need to move somewhere with a lower cost of living than Colorado. He keeps saying move to a cheaper city. Our lives are here. Our friends, our jobs, our hobbies. You can't exactly leave your house and be on top of a 14,000-foot peak in 6 hours where my family is. I told him that we had never talked about moving back there, and we never would. That we would rather be stuck renting for a while longer than be stuck somewhere we didn't want to be, and the move to a cheaper city wouldn't work for us. He said, so be it, and gave us the amount, and that was that. I expressed gratitude and thanked him for the money. It is still towards the goal. Well, because of this shift in our finances, we've had to make a lot of changes to save up the rest of the money. We've had to cut out vacations, birthday parties, holidays, etc. We won't be traveling home for a few years. At our current rate, we should have an okay down payment by the end of next year, 2025. My dad confronted us about this because we won't come for a summer break trip, and told me that I was being a selfish, entitled brat because I hadn't gotten my way. That I was essentially punishing the rest of the family because we assumed what his gift would be. I told him that I was grateful for the amount he gave us, but that it means we do need to buckle down and save every penny if we want to be able to afford a house anytime soon. Even townhouses around us are easily over $400K, and that's for the sketchy ones. But is my dad right? Am I the a-hole? Edit to add, FAQ. There was no amount formally discussed. He said a down payment, and that was that. For my siblings, he paid for college. He paid cash in full for my sister's house. It was $317,000. He did not pay for my college. They are invited to come here anytime, but believe it should be me to go there because I'm the one who moved. No, we do not go out to eat, avocado toast, Starbucks, cable, etc., etc. Your dad screwed you and your wife by giving you money, but less than you had hoped for. If you can't afford to travel, that's one thing, but trying to portray this as your family screwing you over somehow, yikes, that's a definite you're the a-hole for me. You're the a-hole for framing it as your dad screwed you over. He offered you a down payment for a home. You assumed it would be a certain amount. It wasn't, but he still gave you a generous gift. And now you describe that generous gift as screwing you over. Also, while you're under no obligation to go on family trips, to cut out any visits to them for a few years after your dad gave you this generous gift because it wasn't as much as you were expecting sends a message, whether you mean it to or not. Not the a-hole. I live on the West Coast and my family is on the East Coast. It is so expensive now to travel. People always expect you to go to them because you're an a-hole for leaving, but it's really not fair. If you want to save for a house, I get not wanting to visit. They can always visit you, or offer to help pay travel expenses if they really want to see you. So, my wife and sister-in-law got pregnant around the same time, just weeks apart with sister-in-law leading. Wifey's pregnancy was hard on her, but she pulled through, and I did my best to support her, especially since it was our first child. After she gave birth, she had PPD like most women had, but I was prepared for this. I had made around 10 prep meals of her favorite foods and desserts, so she could have them exactly when she wanted them. Plus, it'll allow me to help with our baby girl more. I let her have time to herself whenever she needed it, because if she isn't feeling well, then my baby girl isn't feeling well either. Got her push presents, which included jewelry, shoes, and a bag she wanted. I really wanted her to transition to motherhood as beautiful as she had made it for me becoming a father to our girl. Now on to the problem. Like I said, my sister-in-law gave birth earlier than my wife. She went low contact for a couple of weeks, which I get since I did the same. When I did see her though, I was appalled. She had grown heavy eye bags, wore dirty clothes, and obviously hadn't had time for herself. My brother, on the other hand, looked clean and put together. I didn't say anything since it's not my relationship. Last Sunday, my mom hosted a get-together, and during it, me and sister-in-law were able to talk for a bit. She made a comment about how put together my wife seemed, and she said the labor must have been easy for her. I corrected her, saying it wasn't, and I just took care of her for the first couple of weeks. She asked what I did, and I repeated what I wrote above. She got quiet and looked a bit sad. She mumbled something before heading back inside. I didn't think much of it till yesterday. My brother called me, blowing up my phone, and called me an a-hole for trying to appeal to his wife. He added how they had a fight, and she said she felt she wasn't being cherished and loved like she was supposed to be, and needed time to think about their relationship. She went back to her parents' home with the baby. I told him I didn't mean for it to come off like that, and I was just being honest when we were talking. It didn't work. He called me more names before hanging up. My family is mad at me, especially my dad, saying that I was trying to make my brother look bad in front of his wife by flaunting my lifestyle. Am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole. Your brother's just mad because he made himself look bad by not caring for his wife and the mother of his child like all men should. I applaud you, sir. Plus, honestly, this just sounds like the straw that broke the camel's back, because he sounds incredibly immature and selfish if he looks so put together and well-rested, and she looks like she hasn't slept or showered in days. Not the a-hole. Even if you were a wealthy billionaire to their paupers, inspiring envy by flaunting your lifestyle, how is it your brother has let his wife be run so haggard that she shows up a mess at a family event? He can't help out enough so at least she has clean clothes to wear or time to freshen up before coming? Come on. Besides, your sister-in-law asked. You answered. You didn't do anything wrong. Your brother and father are a-holes. Not the a-hole. If you just being you makes someone look bad, then obviously they aren't that great. Unfortunately, your brother would rather complain about you than just decide to be better. And you know what? That makes him look even worse. This guy is plummeting fast, and it has absolutely nothing to do with you. I, 38 female, and my husband, 41 male, have been stressing over my parents. My parents are screwed, as they took out of their pensions at 55 and have only about 100 to 130K each left. Their house has some equity, but not as much as you would think, as they've withdrawn from their equity line of credit several times. My dad has a $100,000 truck and a vintage Porsche, and my mom has a 7-seater when they are the only ones now. My dad is very prideful and refuses to take anyone's advice, so it was a shock when they came to me and asked for money. He's had a lot of health issues and told me he's going to be taking Social Security now. He's 68 and is quitting his job. which means they cannot afford their mortgage or car payments. They totally blindsided me. I had no idea how bad it was until now. Thinking back, I guess I should have known, as they buy so much unnecessary crap. But my parents always acted as though they were rich. I told them point blank I wasn't funding them until I see all their accounts and assets. And this caused a huge fight, but they eventually relented. I went through what they have, and they really don't need my help. They just need to downsize dramatically. My husband is a CPA, so he knows this stuff, and we went through and told them what they needed to do. They need to sell all the vehicles and get a reliable sedan. They need to sell their 3,400 square foot home and buy into a single home with a basement suite or an apartment. I think the apartment is better, as my dad struggles to mow the lawn and hire someone now anyway. But my mom insists she needs land for a garden. After that, their Social Security payments would be enough, and they would still have a small nest egg. This was met with some complaining that they would be living like prisoners. My parents were angry if they got a small single family, they would need to rent out the basement. My dad insists the basement, which he has as a man cave, is necessary for life. And my mom refuses to downsize, as she has a whole room full of clothes at their current home that can't fit in a smaller house. I got mad and told them they needed to humble themselves since they are the ones asking for money. This resulted in them yelling how ungrateful I am over the phone until I hung up. I told them they have to do this because I'm not helping. They still have more assets than my husband and I, and we have a son to save college funds for. My parents have been trying to guilt me by saying they gave me great Christmas presents and a college fund, so I owe them. I feel like that was a tiny proportion of their spending, and it didn't put them in this position. But am I obligated to help support them when they can support themselves if they downsize? Not the a-hole. Poor planning on their part is not an emergency on your part. They can afford their lifestyle if they downsize, but they are choosing not to downsize. Instead, they want you to subsidize their lives. Don't. If they're strapped for cash, they can sell stuff. You are a good daughter. If you had done that sort of audit and planning for me, I'd be singing your praises to everyone. You are awesome. Well, it isn't that they need to humble themselves. I hate that term. It is they need to face reality and live the life they can afford to live. You reasonably said that you cannot afford to support them. Life is choice. If they choose not to downsize and have to pay more to stay where they are, then that is on them. When they have to hire help for things, that is on them. Children certainly do not owe their parents reimbursement for making sure said child survived to adulthood. After all, children do not ask to be born. You went over their finances, showed them how they could successfully live on what they have. They chose to ignore those parameters. That is on them. Tell them that they should not be buying you and your family gifts in the future. You just want to see them for the holidays and birthdays. And for the more difficult part, do not engage in these types of conversations again. If they get started, remind them that they know what they need to do and that you and husband are not a viable retirement plan for them. Then change the subject or walk away.